Hello and welcome to the 4Ps Podcast. First of all, I want to thank you for supporting this podcast. We've been out here since August of 2023, and our audience has grown and our demographic. I was surprised to see that our demographic, our growing demographic, is people from 18 to 34. And that is a great group because this is a group of people that are looking for their purpose. They're actually researching what their purpose should be and how they should go about approaching those career changes and purposes and all those other things. And also our international audience is growing as well. And where we are growing the most is in the UK. And so to knock out two birds with one stone, I wanted to go ahead and focus on our young people and also focus on the UK. And we have a guest today that fits both of those demographics. We'll be right back right after this.
Do you have the next big thing? That world-changing whatchamacallit? Do you have a story to tell? You need a show-stopping web presence. You need the web spinners at Webinit. With big picture solutions, spinning together SEO, stellar web design, blogging, podcasts, and social media integrations, you'll find yourself developing your latest and greatest thing, idea, or telling that next chapter in your story. Look us up today at Webinit.com, and remember, you're not everywhere unless you're Webinit.
Hey, 4Ps audience. First of all, I want to thank you for listening to the podcast, The 4Ps of You. I thoroughly enjoy doing it, and I thoroughly enjoy the feedback I get from listeners. I hope you enjoy the stories and the guests that come on this program all the time. And if you do enjoy the guests and the stories that come on this program, you will absolutely enjoy my book, The 4Ps of You. The 4Ps of You are a collection of stories dealing with purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. These stories are there to guide you through your journey to see exactly what you want in life. The 4Ps of You is available on all forums. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it Barnes & Noble. You can get it on Google Play. You can get it on Apple. You can get it anywhere you buy books. You can get it in paperback or you can get it in e-form. Please, that's the 4Ps of You. Get it. Would love to have you read it and continue to thank you for listening to the 4Ps podcast with Trunis Goggins. Welcome back to the 4Ps podcast. You know, I have been a college professor now for 17 years almost. And I've always been impressed by the younger generation coming in and really trying to change your life. Now, I teach a lot of non-traditional students, but there are a lot of non-traditional students. As a matter of fact, a lot of people that I teach are over the age of 30 for the most part. But the younger people that come in, they always impress me because they are always looking for a brighter future. They're also bringing in fresh ideas. They're motivated to change and to make the world that they live in better than what it is today. And the one thing that really keeps me teaching, and I'll be teaching for the rest of my life, doesn't matter what my path in with the podcast and with the books and all that stuff take me. It doesn't matter. I'll always have a class somewhere, somehow, somewhere. But I will say this, and the reason why I will always do that is because I'm always just motivated and inspired by young people. One person that inspired me quite a bit is a guy by the name of Tebutt-Gilbert. And Tebutt-Gilbert is from Peterborough, England, and he is a phenomenal individual. He works for a company in England called Progressive Property, and Progressive Property is it's run by nothing but young people. I mean, I looked at the company. It's great. The motivation that these individuals have, the entrepreneurial spirit that they have, the flexibility that they have in their office. And we're going to talk to Luke a little bit later on here in the next segment about what he does. And we're going to talk about the city of Peterborough, England. One thing that amazes me about Peterborough, England is the architecture. It is a beautiful, beautiful city. It's a beautiful town. It's about 74 miles or 118 kilometers to be exact from London, England. And it's a beautiful town. It is absolutely gorgeous. The thing that amazes me about England is, we are here in the United States. We're always impressed. This house was built in 1804. Okay, great. And it's still standing. I appreciate that. And I will say that is great architecture. But there are houses and structures that are still being used today in Peterborough that were literally built in the 13 and 1400s. I mean, and they're still using it. Can you imagine all of the history that is in that building and all of the generations and the architecture and the stories that those walls can tell? It is phenomenal. It is a beautiful city. Like I said, again, it's 74 miles north of London. And I have a lot of followers, I guess, in Peterborough, England. Great place. But one person that that I impressed with the most is a guy named Luke. He actually reached out to me through LinkedIn. He is a motivating person. He is very, very energetic, great guy. He has a great view. And when we come back at the end of his interview, I'm going to share something that he posted on LinkedIn not too long ago. We'll be right back with Luke after this.
Do you feel yourself battling self-doubt or feeling the weight of uncertainty? You're not alone. Many have those moments when the voice of doubt speaks louder than aspirations. Introducing Triumphant, true stories of inspiration for those navigating the challenges of life. These stories aren't just narratives, they're beacons of hope guiding you through triumphs of your own. These stories of inspiration, empowerment, and success will be available in April of 2024.
Welcome back to the 4Ps podcast. We are here today. Now, we are now going across the pond. It's funny that we are airing this during July 4th weekend. It's funny, and the reason why I say it's funny is because our closest ally, our closest friends are across across the pond, and we are airing this right during the July 4th weekend. I'm here with Luke Tebutt-Gilbert, and we have got to know each other over the last couple of weeks. He has a very interesting story. Before I tell the interesting story, the reason why I say it's so funny is because the Queen of England a couple of years ago during 4th of July, she actually came over to the United States during a ceremony with our president, Gerald Ford. So this was a long time ago. And she made a joke about the 4th of July. And she said, I don't know why we are celebrating today. And it was just hilarious the way she did it. And I must share it. You got to pull it up. She really had a great sense of humor. Luke, welcome to the program. Thank you for being here.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is a pleasure to have you. Luke, on the 4Ps podcast, we talk about a whole variety of issues. We have a whole person approach to the 4Ps of purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. And with you are a very dynamic individual. You're dynamic in what you do as far as a living's concerned. You're also dynamic in the way of your way of life. And so I found it to be quite interesting to have you on. I do know, first thing I want to talk about is professionally. Luke, tell the audience what you do professionally.
Yeah, so I work for a company called Progressive. So what we do, we're a big education company. So essentially, whether it's property training, whether it's business training, a lot of people come to us wanting to grow their social media brands, all of this kind of stuff. We essentially teach people how to do it, how to make money from it, how to grow what you have now or what you don't have and what you want. So someone could come to me and say, I'm looking to invest in property, but I don't really know how to. I want to get into real estate. I would then show you different ways to get involved, different ways to get started, and how to do it properly from the start. Because we find usually it's about 80% of people that start into something, if they're uneducated, they will do it wrong. So we're teaching you how you can get involved in something, learning from our mistakes. All of our trainers and all of our professionals, they've all made the mistakes in the history, but we're now showing you how to do it right.
That is excellent. So you are basically almost, and it sounds great because it sounds like you are trainers to entrepreneurs.
Yes, absolutely. Nail on the head, as we would say. A lot of people come to us. So I know podcast Alex Hormozy, have you heard of him?
Mm-hmm.
So he's come through us. He's done a lot of our training. So his podcast, we actually launched that when he first done that. He's one of our good clients. And our founder, Rob Moore, he's got his own huge podcast. He's essentially, in entrepreneur terms, we've got a TV program over here called Dragon's Den. He could be one of the hosts on there because he's huge in property, huge in business, huge social media influence. And we all learn from him day to day.
Wow. So now now here in the United States, we are we push entrepreneurship quite a bit. There are a lot of people, as a matter of fact, in our economy, and it's getting less and less now, unfortunate, but it's still a vast majority of our employment comes from small business and small entrepreneurs. Can we say the same thing in Great Britain or no?
I would say for Great Britain, you've kind of got the middle ground of you've got the small niche companies that may be, I don't know, 10 to 15 employees kind of thing. And then you've got the big corporations that have got 3, 4, 500 employees. So you've got a good mix, but I would say we like to push people that have got ideas. So as an example, we've got running at one of our event suites today, a course on being the face of our company. So we've essentially opened our doors up to everyone and anyone because we want a new face of Progressive. So essentially we're looking for someone that will be at our events, be it on our YouTube videos, being the face of Progressive as an opportunity for them to grow their brand and obviously make money through us as well. So we're looking to help as many entrepreneurs as we can and really push that financial freedom that the owners of the company have.
So I know a couple of years ago, well, actually now it's been almost 8 years ago, Great Britain decided to leave the European Union. Has it been 8 years? My goodness. And so how has that affected the economic climate, especially the small business and entrepreneurial climate?
Yeah, so it's something that we've had to work around. So there's a big thing at the minute of inflation. Across over here, we're in a living crisis, is known as. Essentially, inflation has gone through the roof. All of our products that we would get from outside of the EU or inside the EU have now, their costs have tripled getting them here. So now they cost for us buying. So an example could be the other day I went to one of the stores we have here, B&Q, and I went to just go get a few wooden planks to build some stuff in the garden. I was expecting a bill of 20 or 30 pounds over here, and it came to 90 for a few planks of wood. And it's like, wow. Little things like leaving the EU make it grow up or blow up that much. Because we had, at one of my previous jobs, we had shipped containers and our costs went up 4 times. So we went from originally buying a container for about £1,000. So then when I left the company, it cost about £4,000 to buy a container. So it's inflation, for one, has gone through the roof. But government-wise, there's been a lot of changes in the government. So at the minute, we've got a general election going on for a potential change of Prime Minister. But yeah, leaving the EU has caused us a lot of changes. And I think for businesses and entrepreneurs, it's probably caused a lot more of a headache because there's now a lot more taxes for them to pay, as well as a lot of more outgoings.
Wow. So, I will say inflation here in North America, in the United States and Canada, it's not as bad as yours, but it is bad. But now I'm going to say that I am not going to complain. I'm going to complain, but I'm not going to complain as much as I used to. 4 times as much. And in the case of even buying goods, it's 3 times yours is it's 3.5 times. Yeah. If you're expecting to pay £20 and you pay £90, that's 3.5 times the amount that you were expecting to pay. That is oh gosh, that is a lot of money. As far as so how does that climate, does that encourage entrepreneurs, or does it?
See, I would say it does both of encouraging and discouraging. The reason I would say encouraging entrepreneurship is purely down to the fact of if you don't have the financial freedom that you're after, you then look and seek for something new. So you might seek to launch your own venture, as opposed to just staying where you are and not being able to pay the bills. But then on the flip side, a lot of people may just then collapse. So it's then finding like that purpose of how do I get where I am now to where I want to be? And that's why we push through entrepreneurship of running your own business. There are so many benefits that you can have to being a business owner, a homeowner, whatever it is, to achieving what ultimately would be financial freedom.
Right. And now I'm going to ask you one last question about what you do. I want to know, and I want the my audience to know. I can say the world to know now. I want them to know a little bit more about Luke. But the question I want to ask you about Progressive is this: do you have an international reach, or are you just specifically the UK?
So I would say we're working on an international reach. So we have different avenues, but all of our events at the minute are in the UK. So when I first joined the company, I kind of said to the person interviewing me, I was like, well, my long-term goal would be for us to have a lot more outreach outside of the UK. So with that being said, I know with our podcast agency, for example, we have a lot of people that run podcasts in Australia, America, Germany, that they just can't travel here to do some training, which I get. It's a big commitment. So we run like an agency that helps people online. We can do calls like this, that we can help people that way. That being said, one of our most recent events, Rob Moore hosted it himself. And when I was working the event, I spoke to someone. I was like, where's your accent from? They're like, Australia. I was like, you flew here? They're like, yeah. So they flew here for a week to do the event with us. So I feel like we do have an outreach, but obviously our events are just in the UK. So it makes it a little bit more difficult where people have to come to us as opposed to us going to them.
Absolutely. And I will say this, you need to go and visit the United Kingdom. The funny thing is we can talk about buildings here that were built in the 1600s, and those are babies compared to some of the pubs that were built in the 12 and 1300s there. So really for architecture, that's definitely a place that you need to go. Luke, you are a young man. I can say that because I'm old now. I hate to say I could call people young men now because but anyway, what's life like for you in the UK?
So I think for me growing up, I always struggled in school as didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had a couple of jobs when I was younger. I started work when I was 15. Before I'd even finished secondary school, so high school for you. Got myself a job, got started, and life in the UK, I think it's so different to anywhere else, purely down to the environment that you grow up in, the people you grow up around. I think ultimately location is a big part of it, because growing up in the likes of London compared to Manchester, you'd have two completely different upbringings.
Right.
So where I live, I'm near the Cambridge University. So I grew up around that area. It's a lovely area. I think for me growing up, it was one of them things of you get comfortable for where you're at quite easily. So I always kind of pushed for that next step of I don't like being stagnant on where I am. I always want to push for more. So it's me finding the company Progressive working for. I mean, the clue's in the name. That's exactly the place for me. Right. But I mean, yeah, I've done a lot in my life of traveling to different places and all of this kind of stuff. But for me, I think the UK is home. It's for people that aren't in the UK. I don't think they'll ever get it. Right. But I can see why. I can see why people do go. They move to America or they move to Germany for just different experiences because the culture is so different. Have you been to the UK?
Yeah. Oh, me? No, I've not. No.
Yeah, so it's just a completely different way of living. It's you can be in. I'm sure it's probably the same in the States, but it's you can be in one place 1 minute, half an hour go to somewhere else, and the whole environment is completely different just in a half an hour gap.
Wow. That is, and that is, and so you like the United States, we have 50 states. You have, you have England, and people mistake, and when people say, well, I'm from England, you are actually not really saying you're from the country. You are from an area. You have Scotland, you have
Yeah.
Northern Ireland, you have Wales, right?
Yeah.
So how many, and what do you call them? You guys you don't call them states, obviously. What do you call them?
Yeah, so they are just their own country in their own right. So
Mhm.
it's if I wanted to go up to Scotland, I can just drive through. You do need a passport now. So that since leaving the EU, you do now need a passport to get through to Scotland.
Okay.
But for me to get to Scotland, it's about a 6 hour drive.
Okay.
And for us, that's the longest drive you can do. For you
Wow.
guys, you could just drive for days and days and days, and you
Absolutely.
still won't get to the end.
Actually, you know what? It's funny because a 6 hour drive for me is nothing. All right. 6 hour drive. And I'm also in maybe I've also crossed like 4 or 5 different state lines in that 6 hours. That is fantastic. What do you do for fun?
So for fun, for me, I really enjoy personal development. So for me, fitness is probably my highest priority.
Mhm.
It's something that keeps me focused, and I get the biggest reward out of it. Um, so for me, fitness is a big thing. I spend a lot of my time. I like listening to books, reading podcasts, that kind of stuff. But yeah, for me, self-development's a big thing. Big football fan as well, so soccer for you.
Yeah.
So going to as many games for that as I can and things like that.
Fantastic. And I will say this football for you, it's hard because I'm like you have to put yourself in that mood. Football for you is just as infectious, if not even more than as it is for NFL football for us. But I do see that we have games in the UK now. I know that my Buffalo Bills were there just last year. I'm from originally. I'm from Buffalo, New York,
Yeah.
and I will say that you guys are really getting into our football, and we're getting into your football. So
Yeah, it's a great crossover. We've just had one of the biggest teams here, Tottenham Hotspur. They've just had a new stadium built, and they're
Yeah.
hosting a lot of American football games as well. So it's always good to see from our point of view that we're open to it as well.
And it's funny that you bring this up because the stadium that you built in that area, Buffalo is now building a stadium that is exactly like that stadium. The same
really?
design and everything, just because of that. And that stadium will be up and running in 2026. So and they did. It's almost like they just lifted your stadium and said, this is what we're going to do over here. It is a revolutionary stadium, to say the least. So, and they talk about that stadium quite a bit. Weather. I know that, everybody talks about, we even have jackets here, London fog. What's the weather like where you live?
So so at the minute, so this should be our summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And so far this year, we haven't really had a summer. It's a bit odd. So, most of the days it's raining here, it's cloudy. The highest temperature Celsius it gets to here usually is about 20 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
When it's nice and sunny, everyone is out in the UK. No one's inside because we very rarely get it.
Right.
So it's rainy, it's windy. Because most of the times, because I'm an early riser, I like to get up nice and early. I wake up before the sun rises, so normally about 4:45 in the morning I'm up, and I can wake up. I normally like to wake up, go for a run, go for a walk, that kind of thing, and usually it'll be in the rain. And then when summer hits, it hasn't hit yet, but when it does hit, then it's nice. You're waking up, you're going out in shorts instead of baggy work trousers or whatever. And you living life.
It sounds like you get up early in the morning and you go for a run. It sounds like you've read my brother's book once or twice, right?
I have absolutely. I tell you what, I reached out to you originally because of him, and it's because I've read all 3 of his books, listened to every podcast he's ever been on, studied your brother,
Mhm.
and he's the one that got me into everything. So I finished his first book and signed myself up for a half marathon to do. So I've got a race coming up purely down to he said you need a purpose. And
Right.
it's, and I know you're a big believer in it as well,
Mhm.
of having that purpose and having something to wake up for and work towards every day. So it was actually your brother that got me into fitness.
That's awesome. And I will say this, I could tell, by the way you talk about what you do for a living and your discipline, that you have found your purpose and you are definitely living it. Not only are you living it on the physical realm of like fitness and running and this, that, the other, you're doing it on the financial realm. And like I said, you are a very intriguing young man. And I'm going to keep on calling you young man. I'm sorry, but
Well, I'm 20. I'm 23. So it's...
Okay, there you go. So I have 30 years on you, man. So but that's fantastic, and you're extremely ambitious, and I'm it's a pleasure to have you on the show, and doing what you're doing right now. If somebody wanted to go to the UK to start business, I know that they're going to go to Progressive. I know that they should talk to you. What advice would you give to them?
So my advice would be find a market that isn't oversaturated. So if you came to the UK and you landed in central London and you said, right, I want to start a business, I'm going to start a clothing brand.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say to you, okay, what color clothes are you going to do? What kind of logos? How many people are already in that market? Because if you're starting out at the bottom and you've got to work your way to the top, it's going to be quite difficult. However, if you came to me and you said, I would like to start a podcast on about mining gold, I would say, okay, how many of them podcasts are kind of in your market? It might be 5, it might be 10, compared to 1,000 t-shirt brands. So for me, my advice would always be find a niche that you can saturate. Because if you go into a market that's already saturated and loads of people are already doing it, you've got to create a very complex either service or product that's going to cause some chaos in that market. So you've got to be quite disruptive. And I mean, my biggest advice would be get started. It sounds simple, but I speak to thousands of clients that come to me with all of these different ideas. And then I have the same call with them in 6 months' time. And I say, what did you do in the meantime? Well, I wrote this down and I've emailed this person. You need to get started, because with property, real estate, we always say you don't wait to buy real estate. You buy real estate and you wait, because no matter what, there might be little dips, but it will go up. The graph will go. It might be a little bit up, down, but the constant line will be going up. And it's the same with businesses. Of the earlier you start, the more success you will have.
Absolutely. I'm very impressed. 23 years old. I know a lot of people, we talk about the next generation. They just don't have the drive and stuff like that anymore. And I'm going to tell you, Luke, you have proven the entire world wrong.
Thank you very much.
You absolutely have the drive. You have I'm just impressed with everything you're doing. I really am. I will say that, you are you are the reason why they call Great Britain, Great Britain. You're a great guy. You really are. We will be right back after this. Luke, thank you so much for being on the show. I absolutely appreciate it. We'll be right back with our international edition of the 4Ps podcast. Hey, 4Ps audience. First of all, I want to thank you for listening to the podcast, The 4Ps of You. I thoroughly enjoy doing it, and I thoroughly enjoy the feedback I get from listeners. I hope you enjoy the stories and the guests that come on this program all the time. And if you do enjoy the guests and the stories that come on this program, you will absolutely enjoy my book, The 4Ps of You. The 4Ps of You are a collection of stories dealing with purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. These stories are there to guide guide you through your journey to see exactly what you want in life. The 4Ps of You is available on all forums. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it Barnes & Noble. You can get it on Google Play. You can get it on Apple. You can get it anywhere you buy books. You can get it in paperback or you can get it in e-form. Please, that's the 4Ps of You. Get it. Would love to have you read it and continue to thank you for listening to the 4Ps podcast with Trunis Goggins.
Do you have the next big thing? That world-changing whatchamacallit? Do you have a story to tell? You need a show-stopping web presence. You need the web spinners at Webinit. With big picture solutions, spinning together SEO, stellar web design, blogging, podcasts, and social media integrations, you'll find yourself developing your latest and greatest thing, idea, or telling that next chapter in your story. Look us up today at webinit.com, and remember, you're not everywhere unless you're Webinit.
Welcome back to our closing segment. And I'm impressed, and I'm sure after listening to Luke's conversation and his interview, I'm sure that you're impressed as well with Luke. Like I said, we have no, and I've said this many times on the podcast, I really am impressed with the next generation. I think that, a lot of us, we have the get off our lawn type mentality, and we use, this new generation knows nothing about the struggle and all that other stuff. I'm going to tell you, there's a group of young individuals right now that they're trailblazers. They are blazing a trail. They are in business, in technology. They are looking at the world a lot different, and that's what improvement's all about, is making that change. And sometimes us older people, and I'm putting us in there, maybe we are not equipped yet, or we're not, even though we may have the drive, we don't have the mindset to make the types of changes, because we are pretty much conservative in the way that we do not want to make too many mistakes later on in life. The younger generation, they're ready to do it. They're ready to go out, take the risk, and make the challenges. And listening to Luke and listening to his zest for life is something that he wants to do. And speaking about Luke, like I said, I'm going to read something to you. He posted this on LinkedIn. He says, "Isn't it crazy how motivation can change in an instant? An example is this evening. I was out for a run and all is well. I was a bit too hot, and all of a sudden I'm overtaken by a dog. A dog had escaped and was on the loose. Two people were chasing it behind me, so I thought I'd try to help. A mile of a sprinting later, I managed to catch the dog and give it back to the owners. All it took was a moment of distress, and my motivation changed from a slow jog to now a sprint for a mile to help a family. How I imagine if I could always be that motivated, how much more could I achieve?" This is by an individual who hasn't even cracked his 30th birthday yet. He is really reflecting on what he could do if he was motivated. And one thing I do want to tell Luke, because I know he is listening, Luke, I'm going to tell you, motivation it changes, it fluctuates. It's about persistence. It's about what you really, really want to do. Sometimes you are in a sprint, and you are. Sometimes you're in a jog. Sometimes you're in a jog and you are very tired, but something makes you move. I have a funny story. I was running. I was in the Navy, and I was probably in the last. And I was running by myself. I was running in around my neighborhood, and I was on the last maybe 4 blocks of a 3-mile run. And so I'm running. It's early in the morning, and I was getting very tired. I stayed up late the night before, and even though I had to do my run because I have to, I was trying to make sure I stayed in shape for the Navy. I was in the Navy at the time, and I was just taking my run, and like I said, about 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting very, very tired, and my run came to almost a speed walk. It was barely a jog. And there was a neighbor about 4 blocks from our house that had a pit bull. and they didn't secure the gate or something, and that pit bull saw me, and when the pit bull saw me, it started running after me. And I am going to tell you right now, not only did I go for a full run, I actually ran because I knew I wasn't going to make it to the house without him catching me. I saw a custom van. It was a full-size family van that was pretty high up, and I really don't know how I made it, but I first of all, I want to thank you for listening to not know how I got up there, and the dog kept on barking. I thoroughly enjoyed doing it, and the neighbor who I jumped on his van heard the commotion, came out. I hope you enjoy the stories and the guests that on top of your car, but I am not getting down. And if you do enjoy the and the other neighbor who had program, you will absolutely enjoy. But I'm going to tell you, motivation. It's funny. It's a little bit obvious. I was not trying to get that of stories. I really was not trying to capture that dog. Passion, help my neighbor get their dog. These stories are there to guide you through your motivation journey to see exactly what you want in life. The 4 P's of you are, and that's all there is to it. I'm sure that everybody in the neighborhood laughs. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes and Noble. Just about 2 years ago, and he still remembers that story. You can get it anywhere you buy books. You can get it in paperback, but I will tell you, no, longer than that, 15 years ago. And so I was in a full sprint. So you will, you love to have you read it. You want to know about motivation, there it is for you. Motivation does change, and I wish I was that motivated all the time. But sometimes you don't have a really fast pit bull behind you, and in your case, sometimes you're not really motivated to help somebody. Sometimes you are just, you're just going through the motions. The stakes aren't as high. In the case where motivation raises is when the stakes get higher. If you watch sports, which I talk about sports all the time, if you see a team that is losing in the dying minutes of a game, they seem to kick it up to another level. And you're like, why weren't you playing like this the whole game? You see it a lot in hockey. You see it a lot in football. You see it a lot in soccer, or I'm sorry, this is a UK focus, so you see it a lot in football. You have football American, and then you have football, but you do see it a lot all the time where teams where they were kind of lackadaisical and not motivated, when they realize that they may lose in the dying seconds, their motivation kicks right up, and the momentum shifts. But I love how you did share that reflection. It's a great reflection. It's something that we all go through all the time, where we don't have the same. We really do long for a high level of motivation all the time. Luke, you are definitely somebody that is highly motivated all the time. Next week, we are going to keep this a little bit international. Next week, we have a story that I am going to release. One of my dearest friends, and he's been a dearest friend for a very short time. We just met each other just this year, and his name is Philip James McDonald. He is a boxer, and he is also an architect in Australia. He is a dear friend. It's going to be a 2-part series. We're going to play 1 part next week, but we are going to play the other part. We're going to wait and play the other part then a couple weeks later. His story is very, very, it's inspiring. It's sad. It is motivating. And I'll tell you right now, the man has a heart of gold. Not only does he have golden gloves, he has a golden heart. We will be back next week with Philip, and we will also, we'll be back with 2 parts with Philip, and you're going to love that episode very much. Thank you very much, Luke, for being a part of this program, and thank you all throughout the world, wherever you are. Thank you for listening. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.